everyone. My name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. Today we are going to be talking about dollification, and it has been, I want to say, 6 years since I have discussed this on my channel, and it is definitely time for a revisit. And I thought, with the trend currently on TikTok of people behaving like NPCs and the huge success of the Barbie movie, it's a really good time to talk about people that act like dolls and what all of that is about. And I think especially with dollification, it's a kink that is not even really known about, even within BDSM circles. I don't really know why this is, because it can be very similar to other very popular forms of roleplay like CGL or DDLG or pet play, and for some reason it just never really caught on and became super popular. And I think if you are someone who is drawn towards pet play or CGL, but for some reason those roles never really quite felt right, this might be a good option to know about. And even if you're not really into all of that, if you just really like heavy bondage and emotional sadomasochism and high levels of control in relationships, this might also be a really good fit. Now, before I get into it, I do need to say, just as a disclaimer, it was very difficult for me to find a lot of good online information about dollification in an educational sense. Certainly you could find other types of content about dollification out there, but not really many people going, I'm a doll, this is what I do, this is why I do it. I do have background information in this just because I've been around it a lot. I've tried it before, I've taken classes on it, so I know about it, but my information is not necessarily fully complete. So please keep in mind, if I talk in this video and what I say about this doesn't fully resonate with you, that's totally okay. You might eventually find someone else who talks about it in a way that is something that makes sense to you. And I think if anything, the lack of online information currently available that is educational really demonstrates how necessary a video like this one is, even if it might not be the most complete version possible. Now, with that being said, what is dollification? What is this video all about? And dollification is a kink done in a BDSM context where one person, usually an S-type or a submissive, takes on the role of a doll. This is usually done by transforming into a doll using roleplay techniques, costuming, and other means, and or the doll takes on a submissive role in a power exchange relationship with somebody who is a D-type or a maker. Now, there are many other ways to be a doll. You can be a dominant doll, you can be a doll that switches, you can be a doll and other kinks and other types of roleplay at the same time. It can be very complicated, but that is the most common form, are dolls that are submissive with people that are not. And even within being a maker, there are many other variations for what that title can be, what that role is. Maker is definitely the most common. You will also see things like owner, creator, master, puppeteer, other terms that are more related specifically to what kind of doll that it is. Other people will also use terms like mistress or mommy or daddy that are more general to BDSM, and those also work as well. There are many other kinks that overlap with dollification too, like heavy bondage and mental bondage, not just physical bondage, hypnosis, training, behavior modification, and latex too. And I will talk about a lot of these in more detail later on in the video. And when it comes to dollification, I think a lot of people have a stereotypical image of what they think a doll looks like. They think, okay, a doll is they gotta have a wig or long bleached blonde hair. They're gonna be wearing a skimpy pink outfit. They're gonna be in high heels and jewelry, and they're gonna have a full face of makeup on, and they're gonna, wanna go shopping. They're gonna have kind of a lilt to their voice. They're gonna be sort of vapid and peppy at the same time. And that is definitely one way to be a doll. But it's definitely not the only way. That version of Barbie is very common, but I think that's actually more accurately describing another kink, which is bimboification. Those are two very interconnected kinks, dollification and bimboification, but they're not synonymous, and you can be a doll without being a bleached blonde Barbie if you don't want to be. Because think about it, in reality, how many different types of dolls are there out there in the world? Yes, Barbies are a thing, but Bratz dolls, Cabbage Patch Kids, clown dolls, haunted Victorian dolls, porcelain figurines, action figures, because yes, men and mask folk can also be dolls too if they want to be, and you don't have to be a girly, frilly princess doll if you don't like that. Also just general like baby dolls, if I didn't say that one already. There are homemade rag dolls from like the My Little House on the Prairie days. There are puppets and even interactive electronic dolls, because you don't have to be analog to be a doll. And that kind of begs the question, no one else is thinking this but me, but maybe somebody else. Can you be a Furby and be a doll? Is that a thing? I really want to say yes, but I'm not sure. So let me know, can you be a Furby while you do dollification? I would love to know your thoughts in a comment down below on that one. But the point is, there are many different ways to be a doll. And even with being a maker, you're not always a Geppetto-like, you know, toy maker in a workshop. You could also be a maker and be a bratty, dominant little girl with her favorite baby doll. You could be a middle who collects expensive BJDs. You could even be a sadist who likes to torment dolls by cutting off their hair, dyeing it weird colors, or making them wear funny outfits just for your own pleasure. It could be both physically sadistic and emotionally sadistic as well. And as you can probably tell from just what I've said so far, this can overlap into other kinks like being a little or being a pet to other types of role play, where maybe you're a cute little baby doll, or maybe you're a pony figurine, and that can be really fun to play around with because you can overlap this into many other kinks. You don't have to just be that one like very stereotypical image of a doll in order to act like a doll. But what does it actually mean to act like a doll? How do you add in that doll element into a scene or into a relationship? And I think traditionally, a lot of dollification was very centered in like hypnosis, heavy bondage, mental bondage. And if you don't have a point of reference, I think a good close kink to look at would be like being human furniture. Like if you ever like thought about somebody acting like a coat rack in the corner of a room, and they are holding everyone's coats for the evening because they're a human coat rack, that's very similar, I think, to how a lot of more traditional dollification works, where you are taking on the role of a doll, and it's very exacting, it's very controlled. It's like, I am a doll now, I am being transformed, and I am like stationary, I'm not moving, I'm not speaking, I'm not even like changing my eye contact until and unless I am being moved by my maker, or I have some other kind of ability to move, and I'll talk about that possibility more a little bit later on in the video. And definitely the transformation aspect of dollification, I think, is very, very big. The idea that with enough time, energy, role play gear, and face paint, you can turn someone into a doll, and that the maker has that ability, has that skill level to take basically a human form, raw clay, and then mold it into something desirable and beautiful like a doll. Now, not all dolls are beautiful. You can be a doll and be creepy and weird and frightening, but I think most commonly a lot of people are looking to be a doll because they want to be a beautiful, precious object. And objectification can definitely be a part of this kink. And I think for a lot of people, that role of maker can be so powerful because of that ability they have to take someone and say, hey, I'm going to transform you into something that I want. I am going to make you because you are going to please me. You are going to serve me. You're going to do my bidding. Or I just make you because I want to laugh and have fun, and you're going to entertain me as a doll because dolls are toys, and what is the function of a toy if not to entertain people, right? From the outside, even kind of hearing that stuff about the motivation behind it, how it mentally feels to do it, I think dollification can seem boring to some people because it's not active in the same way that other kinks are active, where you're running around and chasing each other and doing like, very active physical stuff, because a lot of more traditional dollification is very stationary. The transformation process of becoming the doll is the scene. And then when you're done with that, then you get put on display in a display box or stored under a bed for later, or you get put on some kind of showcase or a stand or something and then shown off to other people as a demonstration of how wonderful and special you are, the effort your maker had to go to turn you into a doll, your ability to just be like a doll and have that level of like very disciplined, exact obedience. Or it's about the exhibitionism, and it's about I'm showing off and I am on display and I can't move, but everyone else can look at me, touch me, make comments about me, poke me, prod me, pose me, and I can't do anything about it. I am stuck here in this moment and have to just like accept all of that. And that having to stay still and just take what anyone else is giving to you, within negotiated limits, of course, as always, but having to sit there and take that is a very extreme example of mental bondage. It could also be physical bondage too, though, using restraints like rope, handcuffs, zip ties maybe even, to make someone be in that shape of the doll that the maker wants, where you are maybe, for example, like you are tied in to the back of a piece of packaging like a doll would be, where you have the twist ties on them, but instead of twist ties, now it's rope instead, and then just being like physically restrained in that exact spot. That can be very intense, but also very rewarding. And the maker can also move the doll into different poses. They may move the doll manually, like a kid would move a doll with joints on it, where, the doll is now going to bend forward or spread their legs or raise their arms or lower their arms as a way of demonstrating, again, the level of control in the relationship, how obedient the doll is, or the ability level of the doll. Like, wow, my doll can do this, what about yours? Like that kind of mentality sometimes. And a puppeteer can even take that to another level, where the puppeteer is using some very complicated suspension gear, other rigging, to make the puppet move to their will without the puppet actually having to move on its own. And that can be very interesting to watch, and it is definitely complicated to do, but it is an option out there. And I think knowing all of this, it is good now to maybe stop and talk about, why do people enjoy dollification? I've talked a lot about like how traditionally there can be these very heavy elements of control and power, and that's very high level. So certainly a lot of people enjoy that very high level of power exchange that dollification can offer, that level of required obedience and just only doing exactly what your partner wants and literally nothing else. Other people also enjoy it because having to just stand there and be still and wait for your partner to get you out of the toy box again, that can be a very transformative experience of mentally like getting into a trance state and very deeply relaxing into that role. Because if you're a doll, you're not worrying about the grocery list. You're not thinking about the big work project due on Monday. You're just being a doll, and having the level of relaxation can be very enjoyable for people. I already mentioned things like objectification and exhibitionism. Those are definitely components as well. And I think the big one I haven't talked about yet is how that transformative process can be healing for people. It can be a relief for anxiety purposes to know that you are becoming exactly whatever the owner, creator, maker wants you to be, that you are made without flaw, without error. You are exactly what you are supposed to be. And that role of doll and maker is very clear. It's not, I think, a power struggle in the way that it can be for some other people, unless you're a bratty doll, in which case, please be my guest. It sounds very fun to do. But I think usually it's very clear where it's like, I know and I can take comfort in the fact that I am being whatever my partner wants me to be. And in that moment, I don't have to worry about what I look like, what I'm doing, as long as I'm doing what my partner wants me to do. And having that be there is, again, so relaxing, so comforting for a lot of folk. And you know, some people just want to feel like they are a worthless doll and they don't have anything to contribute and they are way lesser than the humans around them, and especially their human maker. So again, so many different directions to take this in. But you know, maybe as a doll, you're not really into having to just like stand there staring straight ahead, you know, posing and then just like letting everyone walk by and like talk about you. Maybe you want to have a little bit more freedom, more autonomy. Can you do that and still be a doll? The answer is yes, because you don't have to just be a silent, lifeless doll to be doing dollification. I think the example I usually go to for this would be Chobits, and Chi is much more of a computer than a doll, and the plot gets complicated, but just like the initial impression of Chi is like doll, electronic, there for humans' entertainment and pleasure. Seems like a pretty good place to start for me. And you don't have to just be electronic either to be able to be a doll that's free and can move and can talk. Like you could be like a haunted doll, a doll with a human spirit, or maybe your maker is so powerful that they can literally breathe life into wood or clay or fabric and transform that into a living creature that has autonomy. Like that would be pretty freaking powerful, right? As a partner, like, wow, the power exchange in that one, just right off the bat there. And not every maker is going to use fabric or buttons, right? They could use circuitry and switches, and that would be just as valid, I think, as any other type of doll would be. And being a doll with more freedom to think and speak and just move around, or even have the intelligence to be able to do certain tasks, that really opens up a whole new world in terms of service and behavior training and other things you can do as a doll, because now you can have like programmed behavior number one, where if your partner does a certain hand sign or says a keyword or presses a button or rings a bell, well, now you're gonna go get them water. And you could have a whole series of things like this where you have pre-recorded or pre-patterned things you say in terms of speech or movements or tasks that you perform, or even dances, even things that are just like purely entertaining. You can go through and have that all be part of a programming ritual that you do with your partner to learn how to do certain things to their standard. You know, like if we're able to say like, hey Alexa, turn off the lights downstairs, why shouldn't we be able to say the same thing to an interactive human doll? I think that really makes sense as a connection. And so what this means is that you can really turn any service into a doll activity. Now when you are running errands or writing that grocery list or doing other things, you are able to do it in the mindset of being a doll and have that be part of your programming because my maker is wanting me to do this. Even silly things like being able to hum a song or sing a song on command. And taken to a more extreme level, a lot of makers do relish the ability to be able to snap their fingers and instantly have a doll transform and get into doll mode after being in human mode. And obviously with all of that, because it does oftentimes involve a very high level of bondage and mental transformation and role play, and speech restrictions definitely as well, you have to be very careful about your communication when you do dollification, because a lot of the more typical ways that people would, you know, use a safe word like saying red, that might not be accessible to you. It might not make sense. Like if you are completely mute as a doll, you might have to come up with a nonverbal safe word like tapping or pinching or doing some kind of repetitive movement. You could even like act like a broken doll in some way, or like part of you is broken and malfunctioning to be able to signal that within a role play context if you are more of a verbal doll and you are able to speak. I would think about things that communicate, again, without breaking the role play necessarily if you don't want to do that. Like something being wrong, or that could be like, warning, warning, or like error message 405. Like it could be like whatever message you want it to be to indicate like something's wrong, check in, we need to stop, I need to get out of doll mode, like whatever it is, to be able to understand and to be able to say, okay, can't do this anymore, because otherwise you get into a position where like if you're a doll and you have to stay smiling and happy and like I am a happy doll, yay, like if you can't communicate with your facial expressions or with your words that something is wrong and have a tool for that, like you could get stuck in like role play that's scary or bad or negative and then not really know how to get out of that. You could even do something silly, like the sort of like rhythmic chime you get when there's like an error message on your washing machine or your dishwasher. If you want to do something that's like a little bit more lighthearted, but definitely still distinct from your other behaviors that you would be doing. And I think with this also, not just safe words, but aftercare you definitely need to consider, because again, high level bondage, very mentally involved play, that can take a long time to fully come down from, and you need more time to readjust to your like everyday frame of mind. So definitely account for that. Definitely have lots of communication lines open for talking about the scene afterwards, what worked, what didn't, and just give yourself a lot of space to come down afterwards, because a lot of people talk about aftercare like it's just for bruises and marks and, you know, broken skin. But even if you don't have any of that, you can definitely still have a lot of aftercare needs, and that is totally, totally valid. If you want to do stuff that's like very intense, like stationary long-term bondage, that's a whole other can of worms in terms of like safety considerations for that, because it can be quite intense, and like long-term nerve compression is generally not a good idea. Would not recommend it. So if you want to do that with dollification, definitely do your own research on that area and really make sure you know what you're doing before you introduce that into your relationship. And I think with that being said, that's really what I wanted to say about dollification. I would love to know what you all think about this one in a comment down below. I would especially love to know if you have anything else you want to know about with dollification in terms of like roles, scene ideas, anything else you want to know about with this. Again, please let me know in a comment down below. If you're a doll who's done this before, I would love to know your thoughts, especially also in a comment down below. If you did enjoy this, you're not already, please do subscribe, because I make videos twice a week about all sorts of different kink and BDSM related subjects. And finally, if you want to support what I do, the best way you can do that is with Patreon. Link to that will be down below. If you do already support over there, thank you so, so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you all next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.